Hello lovely people, it's Candy here. Welcome back to my channel. I'm doing another VR today to the lovely Simon over at the Hermits Cave. 5 years, 5 decks. One problem, I haven't been involved in tarot for 5 years. Tarot has been very new to me, only 2 years. Picking 5 decks, that doesn't help. So Simon said, take artistic license. So I began by looking through my collection, trying to find impacting decks that were published on each of those 5 years. And it kind of worked and it kind of didn't. But then as I was looking at some of the decks I was pulling out, I decided to really take creative license with this tag and to kind of show you the deck creators that have had an impact on my tarot practice that are linked to those years. So 5 years, 5 deck creators, and we're going to start off with a deck that was published in 2017 that had a really profound impact on me during my tarot practice, and that's this one, the Literary Witches Oracle. Now this was one of the earliest oracles that I bought. I bought it with the big book as well. It was the first deck that I really fell in love with cardstock. It was the first deck that made me realise that the tactile experience of tarot is something that I just love. I love all the colours as well, the muted colours in it. I love the backs. I love this textured linen-y cardstock, and I just love this deck. It has real magic within it. So you've got these single spell object cards, which I love, and then you also have female authors, so real female power energy throughout this deck. So it's a slight oddball. It's quite unusual the way that you use this deck, but it just had a real impact for me. I would pull this deck out when I needed to feel secure and safe and hugged. I suppose it's like a hug deck. And because I love reading, it also had a massive impact on my reading life. But the creators that I want to highlight with this deck, it's not necessarily the tarot creator, it's the creators featured. It's the creators of fiction that I want to highlight sharing this deck. So people like Octavia E. Butler, who's produced this amazing patternist series of books. The first one is Wild Seed, which I've already read. This is the second book in the series, an amazing series of books I'm still reading. The people like Sylvia Plath, now buying this deck made me reconnect with the poetry of Sylvia Plath, which has been wonderful. It's introduced me to people like Angela Carter and books like The Bloody Chamber, which are short stories based on fairy tales. And then of course the work of Audre Lorde as well, new to me, novels, poetry, just really inspirational creative fiction from authors I might never have found if it hadn't have been for this amazing Literary Witches Oracle. So it's slightly a different share from my first one. It was a deck of 2017, but it's a deck that I'm going to share because I want to celebrate the female authors and the creatives using words that this deck has brought me. The book list that this deck generates is still ongoing. It's still impacting me 2 years on from getting the deck. I really love it. I went to 2018 to try and find a deck that impacted me in 2018. I pulled out the Wild Unknown Tarot, which turned out it wasn't 2018, because I wanted to include this somewhere in there, because this was my very first introduction to tarot. It was my first tarot deck, But Kim Kranz's deck, the Animal Spirit Oracle, which again was massively impacting for me. I love this Animal Oracle. I think if I could only have one Animal Oracle, it would be this one. This was 2018. So I decided for 2018 to go with a Kim Kranz tribute year, because Kim Kranz's decks were really impacting for me, not only being the first one, but being such a fantastic animal oracle as well. So these decks are stunning. The story behind this deck was I was on FaceTime with one of my friends. I just bought my first oracle, Work Your Light Oracle, and I was talking to my friend, my best friend, about the fact that I've got this oracle deck, and she said, oh, I've got tarot and oracle decks as well. And she just bought this and she went running to get it, and she did me a little intuitive reading online. Neither of us at this point knew anything to do with the actual real meanings of tarot. She's also a textile artist. She was reading totally intuitively, and it astounded me. So I got off that phone call and immediately ordered this deck. So at that point then I'd got Work Your Light Oracle and this tarot deck, and it just opened up the floodgates to this just huge passion that I now have for tarot and oracle. So Kim Kranz does hold a really important place in my journey, really, and these decks are super important to me. This deck as well for working with animal energies. This deck I find really profound to work with as well. This was published in 2018, so both decks super important, but it goes beyond the decks, because when you look into Kim Kranz as an artist and a fitness enthusiast, I also discovered another synchronicity. Now, Kim Kranz struggled with food addictions and issues around food, and she wrote this beautiful graphic diary about trying to recover from food addiction and binge eating, and just a really difficult time coming out of divorce and being triggered into issues with food through her divorce, which is exactly the same path that I've walked as well. I went from being in a fitness team and training and running marathons to my life imploding and really struggling with issues to do with food. So Kim Kranz not only introduced me to tarot, but she also has made me, through her works and being so vulnerable in her sharing, made me feel not so alone or ashamed, really, to know that it's a path that other women have found themselves in. So for that reason, Kim Kranz is another tarot creator that I just holds a really special place within my journey. So 2019 we're up to now, so I'm going to go with the deck creator Raven Falan for this, because one of my most important soul decks was made in 2019, the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. However, I also have this old edition of the Messenger Oracle, not the current printing, but the old one. I love her artwork. It was the first time working with this deck that I realised just how much I love decks that step away from a traditional system. I know some people hate it. Some people claim that it messes up tarot when that is done. I find myself really loving it and being excited by it. I adore this deck. I find it so healing and gentle and kind, and it is really a hug deck that doesn't pull any punches. it's really important. I spent a lot of time this year studying and working with this deck, actually alongside this one. These two play together really nicely. So Raven Falan kind of opened my eyes to the fact that I do like decks that go their own way. The Oracle as well. I love all the fantasy aspects of it. I love the fact that it meshes lots of different things together. I like the fact that there are animals in there, but then there are also fantasy aspects in there. There's like this sort of pagan otherworld feel to it as well. I like kind of these strange creatures that appear, and kind of like goddess characters as well. The cosmos is in there as well. It's a real mishmash of different elements that come together but make sense as a whole. It's basically a portal into a whole new world, the Raven Falan's fantasy world, and I like that element. So 2019, when the Dreams of Gaia was printed, my 2019 slot goes to Raven Falan. So we're up to 2020, and for 2020 I am going to go to a deck that was actually my second tarot deck after the Wild Unknown. It was the deck that I thought I was being extravagant buying because I'd already got one tarot deck, and you don't need more than one, right? But it was a deck that was produced in this year by the amazing Chris Ann. So 2020, I'm giving this year to Chris Ann. Now, the Muse, I didn't connect with it at first. I loved the colours, I loved the production. This pink and turquoisey green is just my favourite combination. But I kind of decided quite quickly that I didn't think I liked collage decks. And I have to say, I think I was influenced into that decision more by listening to other people talk on TarotTube about not liking collage decks than actually me coming to that decision. I didn't really give this deck enough time. I discovered TarotTube and got distracted by the plethora of decks around me, so just didn't give this deck enough time. I've completely changed my opinion this year working with it. It's probably been one of my most used decks of 2021, and I love it. And I've completely done a 180 on whether I like collage decks or not. They're probably some of my favourite decks now. I am really falling more into my style of reading and what I like and what I don't like. Chris Ann decks, to me, they just speak to me. They are so lovely to work with. The Light Seers as well. This was my favourite deck of 2020. This made it to my #1 position, although I didn't even get the deck till November. But it is just such a gorgeous deck to read with. Of course, everybody knows the Light Seers, and I love it. It is just top 5, top favourite deck. The Muse, the Light Seers, absolutely wonderful. And then this year I got gifted so kindly as well the only Chris Ann deck that I didn't own, the Sacred Creators Oracle. Now this is the indie version. This got sent to me as a surprise, and wow, it pairs beautifully with all the other Chris Ann decks. It's text based, of course, but these messages, my dog's woofing behind me in her sleep, can you hear her? These messages, when paired with the other Chris Ann decks, are just fantastic. The guidebook is amazing. You could spend months just exploring what the guidebook throws up for each card. Literally months you could spend with one card. And I love it when a deck gives you a chance to do that. So all of these Chris Ann decks for me were massively important in my tarot practice development. So 2020, I'm giving over to Chris Ann. Which creator had a big impact on me in 2021? And there's no contest for 2021. I've got to go with Cheryl Yanbreck Rose. So not only was 2021 the year that this deck was created, but it was the year that I went back to Glastonbury after 2 years of being in complete lockdown because I had to shield with my daughter. I went for a weekend with one of my best friends, and it was while we were in Glastonbury in the Chalicewell Gardens that I discovered this deck and the work of Cheryl Yanbreck Rose. This is her latest deck produced by Blue Angel with these backs, so it kind of fits the year of publication as well. Now, Cheryl Yanbreck Rose, a bit like Raven Falan, kind of combines all sorts of things. You've got the cosmos, you've got planets, you've got aliens, you've got UFOs, you've got goddesses, you've got different cultures, you have Glastonbury link as well, you've got Genius Loki, you've got King Arthur, a lot of British mythology as well, and Celtic mythology in there. And I love that world where all these elements are combined and they come together to make a cohesive whole that shouldn't make sense, but it does. And I find that these decks have a beautiful, powerful, magical voice. Of course, the experience in the Chalicewell Gardens also opened me up to Mother Mary energy coming in. So it really took my practice on a different tangent. I think it made me realise this year as well that Genius Loki has always been present in my practice and speaks to me really profoundly. It gave me an absolute fascination with Glastonbury and the rediscovering the King Arthur mythology as well. It sent me on a deep study of different elements that are all linked together, which I will be sharing once I have got my thoughts and ideas cohesive enough to make sense to other people, which often takes a while. But yeah, Cheryl Yanbreck Rose, massively important. I feel like it's opened up a entire different dimension, not only of my spiritual path, but of my life in general. So yeah, that 2021 slot goes to Cheryl Yanbreck Rose. So I really did take creative license on the 5 years, 5 decks. I tried to link in the year of publication to kind of make it make sense, but then I went down the creators tangent, so all the books from the 2017 deck that it led me into. Creators like Raven Falan opening up my love of different systems. Creators like Cheryl Yanbreck Rose bringing in Mother Mary, Genius Loki, and a love of British mythology and Glastonbury. Kim Kranz with her decks introducing me to tarot in the very first instance, but also her bravery to share eating disorders, also supporting my healing path. The amazing Chris Ann. There weren't 5 decks there were many decks, there were many tangents, but what there was lots of incredible creators over those 5 years that really impacted my journey. So I hope you forgive the creative license with this tag. I loved thinking about this tag in this way. It worked for me. Thank you, Simon, for the original video. I'll leave Simon's links below. There were some fantastic videos linked to this tag. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.